Hey everybody, hope you all are having a great Friday. My friend Kevin Bowser, one of our authors here at Lucid Books, is joining me. My name is Casey Cease. I'm the founder and CEO of Lucid Books, and really excited to have this conversation with my friend Kevin today. I'm going to get our microphone out of the view because, you know, got to keep it appearing professional a little bit. So anyways, Kevin, glad to have you here with me today, man.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, Kevin is actually introduced to me several years ago, and hit it off and have had plenty of lunch and breakfast and meetings together, and have talked about books and critiqued each other's work and some previous books you did, you know, gave you some feedback.
Some book
and
covers you weren't
book
real
covers
fond.
I wasn't terribly fond of, but I was honest with you.
You were.
So at least I was giving you honest feedback. It may not have been desired feedback, but it was at least honest. And so today we're here. We're going to talk to Kevin about his new book that just released, The Emotionally Agile Leader. And so I'll give you more information where you can find that later, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. There's a website, stuff like that. But Kevin has been a business leader, a leader in nonprofits for quite some time, and is really going to be encouraging to us today as we talk about all things emotionally agile in leadership. So Kevin, why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit to us?
Okay, so my name is Kevin Bowser, and I've spent the last, 35, 36, 37 years in business, various roles from owning my own business as a professional speaker and trainer to going corporate and ultimately moving down to the Houston area about 20 years ago. And went really corporate at that point. Went to work for a very, very large oil and gas company here in town, and I've just had a lot of different roles and opportunities over my lifetime, from as you said, in the small and the nonprofit world to really traveling the world, doing work for some pretty big corporations.
So were you always a business leader? I mean, even when you got first started, talk to me a little bit about that journey of leadership, because there's a lot of people who do business, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're a leader. So talk to us about your journey of, one, realizing some of your giftings in leadership, and the journey of kind of growing into leadership in some ways that's been expressed.
Okay, so I've got an article. It's I think, rattling around in my head. Don't write it, because I'm going to give you the headlines of it.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that's interesting is when we confuse leadership with role models, right?
That's a good point.
In two areas that I used to do a lot of work with in professional speaking, that I see where there's a real confusion between that, and that's the area of sales and like IT or software development, right?
Yeah.
Where you take your best salesperson and you go make them a leader, you go make them a sales manager, and that may or may not work out. I really disassociate leadership from management and those kinds of normal things. So I've had management roles. I've had at one point 90 people reporting to me. Wow. So I mean, I've had some pretty big senior management roles. But I find the most joy in the small one-on-one leadership aspects of it. I consider myself more of a coach, more of a mentor than a manager. And over my lifetime, the thing that's brought me the most joy has been those times when I've had the opportunities I've had to work with companies or work with startup individuals, new people coming into the workforce, and working with them and helping them to develop and to become successful themselves.
So at what point did you go from being a leader to wanting to invest in future leaders? Because leadership oftentimes, right, it replicates itself. If it's a good leader, healthy leadership,
sure,
it's replicating itself. So what was that journey like?
Well, it was a journey of self-reflection. I had a very unique opportunity many years ago. I was 22 years old, and I was elected to my first nonprofit board. Okay. And I really didn't know anything. I'll be honest with you. I didn't know a lot. And I happened to be on this board with some older individuals who did know a lot. Some of them were business leaders. Some of them were just business people. And I had a couple of them sit beside me in some of those early meetings, and they impressed upon me the importance of learning and listening before I spoke. And I guess what I've done is I've taken that example that was lived out for me and said, okay, how can I help younger individuals, emerging leaders as we call them, how can I help them develop the same way that someone developed me? Yeah. One of the ones that's most key is a guy, I had a just an old beater car. Well, actually, it was a brand new car, but it was a lemon, and I wasn't smart enough to realize that. And the car had severe difficulties. It had, in the 3 years I owned it, I think I had 5 sets of brakes put on that car.
Wow.
And the guy that mentored me was a man who owned a Firestone store. And while he was working on my car, he was also working on me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I want to be able to do for folks going forward.
So of the 20 plus years of leadership you've had, how many of those years would you say have been proactively focusing on equipping other leaders?
Probably since the late or mid to late 90s, when I really began to take it seriously. And maybe that's about the time that I kind of crossed over from young age to middle age and started getting older, and I kind of realized that I had a responsibility to do what was done for me. So it's probably been in the less than 20 years probably that I've really taken it seriously. And I think a lot of that has to come over time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't jump in day one and be a mentor of other leaders.
Well, some of us think that we might be able to, but it usually doesn't work out very well.
Maybe the really good ones can.
No, for the mentors or the mentees, for sure. So as we said earlier, Kevin is the author of the newly released The Emotionally Agile Leader. He is a business leader, he's a coach, he's a consultant, he's a speaker. So why this book and why now?
This book came out of some work that I was doing with another kind of leadership guy. We were looking at how do we take some basic concepts that Daniel Goleman in Emotional Intelligence, or Bradbury and Greaves in Emotional Intelligence 2.0, some of the things that they were doing, and we said at that point a couple of years ago, no one was really speaking to the leadership implications of that. Right. So that emotional intelligence really impacted my coaching and my consulting, and then with my passion for leadership, it just was a natural. And then having been an entrepreneur and understanding how that works, I knew I had to come up with something clever, and you can't just do emotional intelligence for leadership, right? You got to do something different. So that's where that came from. But it really came out of that just the remarkable impact that the emotional intelligence movement had on myself from a personal standpoint as well as a leadership standpoint. So
what are some stories or feedback you could share from your 35 years as it pertains to emotional intelligence, maybe from your life or people you know?
Okay.
Those are air quotes.
Got it.
People you know. Because as a leader myself, I understand I'm constantly, at 40 years old, more aware of my lack of emotional intelligence. That awareness comes through the help of my mom, my preteen daughter. Not my mom. My mom too. My mom thinks I'm just socially aware. Maybe I should call some more, right? But my preteen daughter, my wife Stephanie, she definitely helps me to be more aware of how often I talk and how loudly I talk and how forcefully I talk. I've had friends around me and other people. So.
And I think that's the key. The key is social awareness, right? And one of the first chapters in the book is talk about introspection, being an introspective person. And when it's done well, and when you've seen or you've been dealt with emotionally, it's just incredible. I'll tell you a quick story. And you said you're 40 years old. This one happened almost 40 years ago. I was a very active theater person, and I had a great director in college. She was just outstanding. And we were sitting in the theater one night at the end of rehearsal, and I was sitting on the stage, my legs hanging over the edge. She's down in the front row where directors sit with her big notebook, and she had been running notes and stuff. And so she and I had a great relationship, and we were talking, and I asked her, her name was Rhonda, and I said, Rhonda, I have a question for you. She said, what is that? And I said to her, Rhonda, what do you think of my singing ability? Because I was doing a lot of musical comedy. Mm-hmm. And she looked at me and she said, Kevin, you're a really, really good actor. Right? That's emotional intelligence, right? Yeah. She didn't, she gave me feedback that helped me, but in such a way that she loud and clear delivered the message.
Yes.
But in a way that even 40 years ago, I can still remember that event happening and how it happened. And so it's that kind of stuff that.
Were you aware of how you responded?
I was. I was aware because I thought at the time, one of my favorite words to use when I describe something is clever. If something is clever, that really is the epitome of cleverness. Yeah. And I thought to myself, that was a very clever answer that she just gave me.
Yeah.
So that was kind of one example that has stuck with me for over 40 years.
So as you wrote this book and you're getting it out and it's available to be purchased now, and for those of you just tuning in, the Emotionally Agile Leader, Kevin Bowser here. What are your hopes for the readers of this book?
I really hope that it'll be read and then given away.
Yeah.
I really do. I really hope that it'll be read by somebody and that they'll take, man, that was so good. I got to give that to somebody that they know. Because we all know, and I'm going to say young, but let's just call it, we all know emerging leaders, folks that are on the cusp of becoming good leaders, and they just need a little help. Maybe they need a little self-awareness. Maybe they need to be able to then discipline themselves or control themselves. Maybe they need help in understanding what's going on socially.
Yep.
Or maybe it is then managing how they interact socially. But I guess my hope for the book is that everyone will read it, and then they'll give it away to somebody.
Yeah, read and share.
And pay it forward.
That's a huge thing. So how do you know as an author, like what your desired impact is being felt on your readers? Besides them sharing it, like what? Because I mean, yes, this is a big topic right now: emotional intelligence, emotionally agile leader. But what is that? What's your hope for your reader? Beyond sharing it, I mean, you want them to have a good read, but obviously, when you're speaking of something of such profound impact when it comes to leadership, what do you want your readers to experience?
I really want them to take what they learn from here and apply it to every aspect of their life.
Oh, that's good.
Right? So if a person who's great in the office but terrible at home is not a balanced individual.
Right.
And so I guess I want them to take the things that they're learning in this book, and it is in a sense a business book.
Yeah.
But I want them to the topics and the concepts are timeless and they apply everywhere. So I really want them to take it home. I want them to become better spouses, better parents, better leaders in their clubs, in their churches, in whatever organizations that they participate in. So I want it to be something that impacts them, not just financially on the bottom line, but in their home, in their whole life.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So what's next for Kevin Bowser?
Well, I'm working on a workbook that's going to go along with this. I'm getting a lot of interest and feedback from folks that says, okay, I want to use this as a study, or I want to use this as a mentoring tool. Do you have something for me? So I'm actually working on some mentoring materials that can go along with it. One of the things I'm really excited about is one of the tools that I'm developing is a small card. It's not completely thought out yet, but one of the things I find, and if you've ever done mentoring, right, you pick a book and a mentor and a mentee, and they agree to read a book, and you're going to meet next Thursday morning at Starbucks, and I show up, I'm the mentor, they show up, they're the mentee, and their heads down because they didn't read their chapter that they're supposed to. So now we've got an hour, and we're talking about the Astros, right?
Yeah.
And not talking about the topic that we're supposed to.
Because no one's prepared, right?
Because no one is prepared. Yeah. So what I want to do is empower the mentors with these little cards that has the raw bones of what would be a good topic for that session, 6 sessions, and they can throw that card on the table. Both can look at the card, they can see the picture, they can flip it over, it has a question or two, and that will take them through the bones of the material that, had they actually read the chapter, would do for them.
So can you help me out? What is emotional intelligence? I know you say it's awareness and things like that, but
well,
I hear that thrown around, and I know there's a book about it.
Yeah, there is. There's several books, and I think it really boils down to 4 things. Goleman would say this, and Drs. Bradbury and Greaves, Travis Bradbury and Gene Greaves would say there's really 4 components. One is, how aware am I of myself? How do I perceive myself, and how do I perceive myself? It's self-awareness. After I've done that, there's a second piece of that, which is, how do I then manage myself? Right? Because if I perceive myself, I'm going to perceive strengths and I'm going to perceive weaknesses. So how do I maximize the strengths, minimize the weaknesses, and then mitigate those? The third component is very similar in nature to the first, in that it is more of a social awareness. It's awareness of this. Right? There's more than just me. So it's awareness of this. And then the fourth one then becomes obvious, is how do I manage this? How do I manage the interaction? And some would say really that there's a hidden fifth one.
Okay.
And they would say that is empathy.
Okay.
And for you and I, maybe we have an understanding of empathy that maybe not everybody would, but I think the bottom line for empathy is not only seeing it, but then seeing it in such a way that it drives me to do something. It drives me to an action. And so I think those four things: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, social management, and then sort of the hidden one of empathy, I think is the gist of what you need to know about emotional intelligence.
And so when I teach on like marriage or the difference between guys and gals, like I always joke about how ladies have a tendency to be harder on themselves. They think they don't look as nice as they do or are as smart as they are. Guys have the tendency to think opposite, where we think we're better than we are and more well presented. So what advice do you give to people as they're trying to grow, not only in their leadership in business, but in leadership in general? Are there some healthy feedback loops or ways that people can grow using other people?
When I do coaching on this, one of the things I insist on is I insist on them. I'm now going to insist they buy my book, but
yes.
Up to this point, I've insisted that they buy Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And one of the things about that book is that it gives you two chances to get an assessment, one at the very beginning and then one after you've kind of gone through the material. And assessments are good, but it's a self-assessment. One of the things I do in my coaching and in my consulting is that I do a second assessment, which is a 360 assessment, where I get them to talk to their peers and people that they report up to, or people that maybe report to them, friends, family, loved ones. And I bring that together, and it's for the very reason that you just mentioned. And I think it does sometimes break down along male and female lines, but I think it also breaks down just on emotional lines. One of the things that I don't like about self-assessments is that depending on how your personality is, you'll take a self-assessment and you'll say, and you'll assess yourself as the worst person of all time, right? So it's terrible. Or you're the other person that says, I'm the greatest of all time, and they assess themselves that way. I'm not interested in that one assessment. The thing I like about emotional intelligence and Talent Smart is that you get that second assessment, and that really tells you what you need to know. Are they moving, right? Because we are never as terrible as we think we are. We're obviously never as good as we think we are either. So those kinds of tools and those kinds of assessments are critical. Plus, you need people that can really speak truth into your life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that can tell you, I've watched you in that meeting, and did you realize this is what you said, or this is how it came across? And you say, well, no, I didn't. And you can start seeing some of those things. I talk in here about triggers. I talk in here about the signs. One of the things from my professional life in strategic procurement is that everybody has signs. Everybody has a tell. And when you're dealing with salespeople, if you're on the procurement side, you really need to know that tell pretty quickly. You need to know that sign. And I had a guy that was the most obvious tell of all. Whenever he would lie, he would grab his eyebrow and he would kind of twist his eyebrow.
Why?
So,
what's that about?
I don't know, but I started to ask him questions that I already knew the answers to, and just to see what he would do. And so I think self-awareness and having some individuals in your life that can speak truth to you on a regular basis and that see you in multiple settings is critical.
No, I think that's important. I know for myself, with the church leaders I work with, myself in my own growth as a leader, and business leaders I've worked with, self-awareness and the capacity to emotionally process, respond, and engage in an increasingly aware manner is one of the top keys I've seen to a person's growth capability and the growth of their organization.
And that's really the key of the agile part, right? It's one thing to be able to take that information and process it, but if I'm in a chaotic situation, I may not have time to sit there and contemplate and process that. I've got to be agile. I've got to be quick to make those decisions and respond emotionally. And so I think that's one of the keys of the book.
So is there a part of your book, The Emotionally Agile Leader, where someone who may not be very quick on making decisions, do you talk much about that in this round?
I do. And I think all of us have the capacity, once we become aware of something, we start seeing it, right? You buy a new car, you think you're buying the only car like in the world, and as soon as you drive away, you start seeing them everywhere, right? It's that's just human nature. It's how our brains are wired. And I think if we're legitimate and we're honest with ourselves, if someone points something out to us and we accept it, we start seeing it then, and I think we have the capacity to start catching ourselves and making those adjustments in a more agile manner.
Yeah, that's great. Any last words you'd have to say for those who are viewing this video?
Well, we all know someone that is on a leadership journey, and I think we all know someone that may be struggling. And so if you consider yourself to be a great leader, you're a great candidate to pick this book up and read it and pass it on quickly, and then be that individual that really makes a difference in that other leader's life and helps to bring them along. I think that would be my message to the folks that would be considering the book.
So where do people go to find the book? Don't you have a website for the book?
I do. EmotionallyAgileLeader.com. It's available on Amazon. It's available on Barnes & Noble. And it's available from Lucid Books.
Yes.
And
we also have bulk discounts as well. If you want to purchase it for your organization, I was speaking with several individuals the other day at your book launch party, and there's going to be a lot of large organizations that are going to be purchasing it in bulk to carry their team through. So it's a great resource. This is Kevin Bowser. Kevin, how can people connect with you online beyond the Emotionally
Sure.
Agile Leader?
I'm very present and active on LinkedIn, and I have a page set up for the book on Facebook. I'm pretty open about that and willing to connect in any way. Through those, you can then find me by email. It's Kevin@leadershipvoices.com is my writings on other matters of leadership. But social media, probably LinkedIn would probably be one of the finest. And I post articles on LinkedIn that are topical, and that would give you an opportunity for us to connect.
And if someone's looking for a speaker, what type of organizations do you speak for, coach, consult? Because I know you do coaching, consulting, and speaking. So
I'm primarily focused right now on the nonprofit world, just because of the nature of the job that I have on the day job, and I'm primarily focused on that. I have done some commercial work, but it's in limited scope. If you've got a question, just reach out to me. There's not a group that I won't speak to. For the most part, I spoke recently in San Diego at a marketing conference on the idea of servant leadership and how servant leadership is being employed in the marketplace today. So, just if you have a question, just reach me. I'll be glad to tell you if I can, and if I can't, I have a group of folks that I think I could probably pass you off to that could come and fulfill that for you. I know you're in the process of ginning up an entire speakers bureau around that.
Yeah, we are.
So I think if I can't do it because it's a commercial venture that's too close to what I do from a secular employment, I can help you find and network with folks that can.
Awesome. Well, Kevin Bowser, Bowser, the author of The Emotionally Agile Leader, just released. You can find it on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble. You can go to the EmotionallyAgileLeader.com, connect with him there. Kevin Bowser can be found also on LinkedIn. And so please feel free to check out Kevin's work and reach out to him if he can help along the way. This is actually my personal copy of the book that I'm going to be reading as a leader and growing in awareness that I need to grow as an emotionally agile leader as well. And so anyways, friends, thanks for watching this video, taking this time to connect with us, and we look forward to bringing more from Lucid Books to you soon. Thanks so much and have a great day.